Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Alana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes. All right, we will see how today's recording will go. I have Big Boy Harlow with me today because he just got fixed.
Sorry, cut him off.
Okay, what do you call it that I hate?
Knackers.
Yeah, gross. So I got to keep an eye on him, but you might hear some cone destruction. He is treating me like Marianne Cotton because I had to give him some pills, and he's never had to have pills before. So I had to give him a few pills after the surgery, and he did fine. But then the second day, as soon as we came downstairs in the morning, that's when I had given them, he just looked at me and started running circles around the house, not letting me go within 10 feet of him.
Yeah.
And then he would hide behind Brad.
Like he'll say, you should just give the pill to Brad and say, psych.
I did. So then I was like, okay. So I started giving the pill to Brad. So Brad gave him just as many pills, if not more than me. And he still acts like I'm about to kill him. He doesn't even have to take the dang pill anymore. And I was just giving him breakfast.
Yeah.
And he won't come.
Like, I don't trust you.
Yeah. 30 feet of the breakfast dish. He won't even go near it until like he has to like wait me out.
It's
so ridiculous. Funny. He looks at me like I have betrayed him.
Yeah. Pilling sucks.
Yeah. So fun. Anyway, you might hear some extra ambiance today, but how are you doing? What's new with you?
Good. Content warning, urine. I peed in a jug for 24 hours. That was terrible.
Oh my gosh. Just for a routine test, so right?
Much. Yeah, just for like potassium
there's
stuff.
Not a plumbing disaster.
No, they're not a plumbing disaster. This is a medical thing. Nothing serious, but yeah, it was awful.
One might say you had a 24-hour chamber pot?
Yes, but I mean, it wasn't the worst it could be. But I really hated it. It felt really weird and I didn't like it. So I'm glad that's over. It was only 24 hours, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine you liking that. Well, I hope everything is okay.
I'm routine. Sure it will be.
It was just a time machine for you.
Yeah. Should all be good.
It's worse than a chamber pot because you can empty a chamber pot. You don't have to like keep it.
Yeah, that was not a fun part of it. But anyways, now I know it's over. But
yeah.
I'm wearing the shirt you got me for Christmas.
What's it say?
And it says MILF. Wow, how inappropriate. Psych. Mushrooms I'd like to forage. And then there's a bunch of different mushrooms, which makes me hungry just looking at them, like a king trumpet, portobello. What are some other one of these? I guess chanterelle. The goodies. Chanterelle's the gold of the mushroom forest.
I figured you'd like it, but also the purpose was to be mildly educational so that maybe I save a life. That life being yours.
Yeah.
One day.
No, I mushroom with confidence. Remember, I have that book. I have the checklist.
Yeah.
I take it seriously.
That's all anybody needs when they're
that checklist.
Trying to dodge some poison. Cool. All right. Well, what tea do you have for us today?
I have a tea that it's a really nice collection. I got it from my mother-in-law for Christmas.
Cool.
It is the Tea Forte New York Botanical Garden collection. So it's really fancy. There's like gold typing in it. An exquisite collection of organic teas with profiles of spring flowers and summer fruit, inspired by the New York Botanical Garden.
What flowers are in it?
Well, there's a bunch of different options. There's a chocolate rose tea. There's a green mango peach tea, a vanilla pear tea, chamomile citron tea. But what I chose for today, because I don't know if I need to check my list, but I know I haven't had much, if any, oolong teas. And so oolong is between a black and a green tea if you're thinking of like processing or like oxidation. So it's like it's a
Yeah,
little
I
bit in the
totally
middle.
was. Yeah,
Like
that's all I think about.
you crush black tea, like the leaves, and you don't at all for green. And so for oolong, you just bruise them.
Sounds violent.
It's a light bruising. Like you squeeze someone too hard.
Lovely.
It's let me read the description of this one. I'm a little worried because of the fruitiness, but we'll see. It's strawberry hibiscus oolong tea, a bright and fruity tea with a calming touch of rose.
You like all those flowers.
I do.
All right, let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. I'll also post a picture of the actual tea bag because oolong, another characteristic of oolong is that it's kind of like knotted or like twisted up. And so it kind of looks like Mary Jane in a bag. Not that I would know what that looks like.
What? Oh my God. Okay, it took me a long time to get there.
Wow. Grandma here.
I know. I know. It's like, what?
That was adorable. Okay.
I was like, do you mean Mary Ann?
Cheers.
I was totally on serial killers in my head.
I love it.
I'm just not there with you.
I smell rose. That's the first note here. But rose is a powerful smell. That's why everybody loves them.
I love roses.
Okay. That is so nice and delicate. I'm instantly transported, like I'm in the botanical gardens. I'm on a bench just having a nice calm cup of tea. Sunshine dappling through. It's a beautiful day. I think there's a pond there and probably some lilies. But it's a very delicate tea. There's not a heavy mouthfeel like you'd find in a black tea. Not a big body. It's very petite, as one would say. And yeah, I like it a lot. I'm getting notes of the strawberry as I drink it. I can't really taste the rose, but you can still smell it while you drink it. So that's a nice combo. Yeah, I'd have to give it a delicate thumbs up.
Is the delicate just an adjective, or is it any way taking away from the thumbs up rating?
No, it's just an adjective.
Okay, cool. Delicate thumbs up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you liked that tea, even though it was fruity and flowery.
I know.
And it is a perfect contradiction to what we're about to jump into.
Great.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So last week we were in Paris, and this week we're going to Detroit around the same time period, 1895. So during the 1800s, Detroit had become a hub of transportation because it's on the water, and it had several plants, factories. And between 1880 and 1890, the population had actually doubled.
Wow.
So I know.
That's terrible for infrastructure, probably.
In 1890, it was over 200,000 people. It's more today, obviously. But at the time, it was the 15th largest city in the U.S. So this 1895 mark it's really starting to be, it's in the middle of this big boom. And it's about to take off even more. But just to give you a picture of like what you're looking at, it looks like a city. They have tall buildings, like they have big parks with fountains. In 1895, they paved 4 of the main roads, and everything else is cobblestone.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like that would be so hard to keep up with a boom in 10 years. Like how are you going to make the city up to grade?
Yeah. So everything else is still dirt and cobblestone.
And chamber pots.
And 1895 is where we're going to, but 1896 is when Ford did his first test drive. So it's just on the edge of, taking off.
So we still got horses.
Yeah. On February 3rd of 1895, the headline in the newspaper that morning just reads, "Horrible."
Okay.
Dr. Horace Pope had been murdered, while his wife Nellie and his 7 or 8, I've heard a bunch of different ages, we're going to go with 8-year-old daughter Bernice was in the broom.
Yikes.
The Pope's employee, 22-year-old William Brusseau, ran out into the street in the early morning and looking for a policeman. And he finds one and he says, "I've killed Dr. Pope."
Is this like that woman?
Can you be more specific for our all-female podcast that we do?
The woman who helped write the books.
I'm going to need even more.
The woman who he was a big health writer.
Jean Harris? No.
Yes. Okay.
No. So the policeman follows William back to 88 Michigan Ave, which is where the Popes live. And 88 Michigan Ave is like downtown Detroit today. It is right near the main drag, which is Woodward Ave. The first thing the policeman noticed is that Mrs. Pope, her name is Nellie, right? And the daughter Bernice are on like a makeshift bed in the front room. And the front room has Dr. Pope's dental chair, but it doesn't look like it's been used. And he notices that the room is filthy.
Gross.
It's dirty, it's smelly, but it's also packed with junk. Like the hallways are hard to get through, things like that.
God, it's a hoarder.
And William, who is Nellie's nurse, he's taking care of Nellie because she has a heart condition, leads the policeman into the bedroom, and there's Dr. Pope, and it is grisly. He has been attacked from behind with a hatchet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was there a sachet? Sorry.
I was going to say, pack up your sachet, because here we go. And William says that he did it. So this isn't a whodunit. He says, I did it, but he said it was in self-defense. And when the policeman looks down, he sees both a hatchet and a gun at Dr. Pope's feet.
Okay.
So William's story goes like this. At around 5:45 that morning, William went out searching for a policeman, and he found one. And according to the Detroit Free Press, he says, he's dead. Dr. Pope, come with me. I can't leave Mrs. Pope alone. She might die. Come with me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, the officer notices the two weapons there at Dr. Pope's feet. Now, William says he was asleep in the front room, and Dr. Pope came in, like walked past him and went into the bedroom where Nellie is. And William said he saw Dr. Pope put a cloth over her face. And he became concerned. So he rose from his bed. And when he did, the doctor realized he was not asleep. He turned around and said something along the lines of, I thought you were asleep, but no matter. You won't tell anything anyway. And then he shot at him. Now, the gunshot missed him. It went wide and like stuck into the wall. When that happened, William grabbed the hatchet, which he had been using to cut wood earlier that day, and he pushed Dr. Pope into the chair where his body was found, and he hit him over the head. And he continued to hit him over the head until he was still.
Oh, my God. It's a little violent.
And then he said he focused immediately on Nellie, who he claimed was unconscious. And he moved her into the front room, and he worked on her, those were the words in the paper, for 3 hours.
Like CPR?
I can't imagine it was CPR for 3 hours. I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to get her to come to. And he said at one point he ran to a hotel to call for a doctor, but nobody came.
What was that, chloroform?
That's what William thought. So this is William's story. And Nellie says very little, but she does say, yes, William, that's like William was right in the right. That's really all she says. So right away, the police don't buy this story. Now, I have to tell you, there are reasons not to buy this story, possibly, but the newspaper article that comes out that very next day is unbelievably biased. The way that they paint this picture.
William?
To Nellie. They destroy Nellie immediately from the get-go. So right away, the police aren't believing this. For one, there doesn't appear to be much of a struggle. It appears to them that the doctor was asleep and was hit from behind while he was sleeping. They also don't believe, because he's sitting in a chair.
So they thought he was sleeping in a chair. Okay.
Right. Yeah, rather than like in the middle of a gunfight, as William claimed.
Right.
Additionally, apparently Dr. Pope was, I don't know, they didn't give his stats, but he was a larger man than William. William's about 5'7", 155 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a hard time believing that William could push Dr. Pope into the chair with conceivably one arm and then have the hatchet in the other arm. Apparently.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
Adrenaline can do some crazy stuff.
Yeah. The police believe instantly that Nellie is involved in this. Nellie is unusually tall for a woman. Sources claim that she's 6'4".
Whoa.
And the papers are equating strength with height, which is not a fair. I mean, there are very strong short people and very weak tall people, but they are, because she's tall, immediately the papers are saying things like, I can't believe she's sick. She looks as strong as an ox.
Okay.
Like they're immediately questioning if she's ill.
Tall people, you can't be sick. You can't fool us.
Well, just because, I mean, I think she was probably a slim build. I don't, like, just because she's tall doesn't mean she's necessarily strong. She could be incredibly weak. We don't know.
Yeah, she got spaghetti arms.
And additionally, Nellie, because of her heart condition, she was given opiates and, right?
'Tis the time.
Yeah, she's suffering with addiction, and they are all over that in an unfavorable way.
Sure.
So Nellie's taken to the hospital, and she just refuses to talk. She just refuses to say anything other than that William was in the right. Then the police question the little girl, Bernice, who says that she heard a gunshot and ran out of the room. But this is what I'm talking about, the bias. This is a direct quote from that same article. The daughter, Bernice, claims not to know much about it, but she declares that she heard her father swear. She also repeats the words he is alleged to have used, but the police assert that she overdoes it, because no girl of that age who has awakened from sound sleep would be able to repeat any sentence.
That's not true at all.
I don't understand.
I can think that's so stupid.
It's ridiculous. Like, absolutely, if somebody screams something, I would relay the story. Like, well, I woke up suddenly because I heard somebody yell spaghetti. Like, you would know what they said.
When things are like at an emergency level or like an elevated stress level, you remember, or like it is burned more in your memory. Like, I'm not going to remember a very boring moment, but like if I'm woken up by something jarring, that's very different.
Yeah, I totally. And often you remember that split second because, I mean, a gunshot went off, for God's sakes.
Right.
So whether or not the gunshot woke her up and then
she's just a silly little girl.
Oh man, they destroy her. So police think right away that Nellie and William are in this together. And they are having an affair. The police think. And they're doing it for the insurance money, which is a tale as old as time here at Tea Time Crimes, because
it's the gateway.
Dr. Pope has an insurance policy for $14,000.
Oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm. Now, the police claim that William and Nellie are having an affair, and William's only 22. Nellie, I got every age from 35 to 40 for Nellie, so she's somewhere
it's like the kid in the attic
in between. But police say that Dr. Pope knew of this affair and would stay out late at night and then confine himself to the kitchen so that Nellie and William could be together.
That's a sweet understanding.
And that Dr. Pope would cook his own meals and lived in filth while this was going on.
Because it's only a woman could clean and cook.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, well, if he's living in filth, that seems like a personal choice. If he's locked in the kitchen all this time, for real, he can just grab a rag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lot of cleaning time.
Yeah. You get free time, start using it. Now, police also say that Dr. Pope's friends knew this and suggested that he put a stop to it. So their theory of events is that Nellie was lying in bed saying she wasn't feeling well, that she lured Dr. Pope in, said she didn't feel well, please sit with me. He sat next to her like a obedient, faithful husband, and he fell asleep. When he nodded off, Nellie gave the go-ahead to William, and William killed him. And they did this to be together and for the insurance money. That is the police theory, right out of the gate, day one.
But if you listen to his friends, like they're encouraging him to do something about it, And maybe to do something about it, he chloroforms.
Maybe. I don't know what the truth is here, but they start looking into they kind of do like a character, investigation. So Dr. Pope and Nellie had been married for a long time. And originally, Dr. Pope was from Canada and he graduated dental school in Boston in 1875. And the following year, he got a medical degree from the University of California. So he's a pretty smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
William had also been from Canada. He'd been a farmer and he'd worked various jobs for the last little bit once he got to Detroit. And he'd spent the last year taking care of Nellie. And he said he was getting paid $15 a week. Police go to the pharmacist, the druggist, and he says he knew the Popes for over a decade, and that when they first came to Detroit, they had recently lost a newborn child, and they were devastated, and they didn't have the money to have a proper burial. And Dr. Pope was so torn about this that he attempted suicide.
Oh.
Then the pharmacist said that Nellie proceeded to try and get more life insurance policies after the suicide attempt. And he says that Nellie was a terribly mean woman who swore and abused him so terribly when she would come into the store that had she been a man, he would have fought her.
Wow.
That's what the guy says. And at one point, it's even rumored that Dr. Pope had as much as $75,000 out in life insurance policies. Yes. Now, they also report that Nellie was jealous and would sit in the front room and tell Dr. Pope what patients he could see. Okay. I went back and I looked through the older newspapers to see if I could find anything on the Popes before this tragedy.
Oh, love old newspapers.
I found in the Detroit Free Press an excerpt from 1890, so 5 years before this. And it said Dr. Pope suffered a severe mental collapse, quote. And the doctor stated he had looked into the possibility of it being an attempted suicide, and he believed that it was not, but it was what they called passive congestion of the brain.
That a stroke?
I don't know what that is.
Or a panic attack?
I honestly have no idea. I tried to look it up, but it didn't make sense. So Dr. Pope is definitely suffering with some sort of mental illness or some sort of physical illness that is presenting. The pharmacist said that the abuse from Nellie was so bad that Dr. Pope one time took to the streets in his nightshirt running up and down the street.
Okay.
That to me doesn't seem like a reaction to abuse, but rather a mental illness.
Yeah, like maybe schizophrenia or something like that.
Some sort of manic state.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like if he was abused, they're saying that she abused him to the point of him maybe being mentally ill, I think is what he's trying to say.
Got it.
But I don't know. I don't know what to believe. The police and the prosecution do everything in their power to paint Nellie as this just vicious, vicious woman.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if maybe she was abusive to Dr. Pope, but even if she was, I assume it's mostly verbally, even if she was verbally abusive and gaslighting him, that doesn't necessarily mean that she killed him. But the police seem to be able to draw no distinction between those two things.
Okay.
So they arrest both William and Nellie. Okay?
On charge of murder.
Remember, this happened, right? He was killed on February 2nd. They find that William goes to the police. And on February 5th, William confesses again, and he has a different story. He now says that he never saw the murder. He says that Nellie woke him up, and Dr. Pope was already dead, which he can only assume means that Nellie killed him.
Yeah.
He says that Nellie had been trying to murder him for months and had attempted on 6 different occasions with coal gas. Like to lock him up so like while he was sleeping, like the heater, like to mess with the heater so that he would die from But every time Dr. Pope woke up and opened the window. Then William says that Nellie talked about maybe getting a gun or a knife and having it appear as if it were a suicide.
Hi.
Police report during this that William is all over the place. It's hard to keep him focused. He seems out of it. He seems dazed. He's acting strange. He's
on opium.
Yeah, they think that he is also a drug addict. He probably is struggling with addiction. They ask about the blood on his own clothes. They say, okay, if Nellie murdered Dr. Pope, how come you had blood on your clothes? And he says, basically, well, she must have put it there. Yeah, she put it there. Like as if he's
put the blood there? That's not how blood works.
He's like thinking of this all on the fly.
Oh, boy.
And he says he didn't have an affair with Nellie, just that Nellie had him under her thumb, kind of, and he had to do what she said.
Addict boy.
They don't believe him. They think that the first story he told is more accurate in the sense of how the murder, like the fact that he did it with the hatchet, but they believe their own story of, Nellie and him doing it together. He eventually changes his story again and says, yes, we planned it together. And this is in order to provide evidence to the prosecution for a reduced sentence of 25 years instead of life. Now, they promptly bring in, I can't believe this, they promptly bring in a hypnotist, which is crazy from last week's case. Who hypnotizes William and says that he is in fact very susceptible. And she tried to hypnotize Nellie and she was unable to. And she said that no matter what Nellie would ask of William, of course he would do it because of how easily hypnotized he could be.
I mean, she's not a hypnotist.
So William is talking nonstop. Nellie won't say anything. And when they even bring her against charges, she says she won't even plead guilty or not guilty.
That's really bizarre.
She says, I forget the words that she uses, something like, I prefer to be mute, or something with the word mute in it. She won't speak.
That's not good. That feels like a sign of guilt.
I know.
Like if you were innocent, you'd be fighting.
I don't know. So the trial starts in May. And there's all these, the papers are, of course, all over her appearance, how she's standing taller than any man in the room, blah, blah, blah. And she's composed. And, she's a cold and calculating woman who has no feelings or emotions. At one point during the trial, the prosecution actually brings out Dr. Pope's skull to show the damage that had been done with the hatchet. And when he does that, Nellie hangs her head and is hiding her tears. So then the paper says that she's obviously an actress and playing
Crocodile
to the jury.
tears.
I mean, you can't win.
So I don't want to know, but I guess I need to know. Okay, this is in May. So the skull is just a skeleton.
It's just a skeleton. Yeah, it's just the bones to show the.
Yeah, got it.
The hatchet wounds.
I feel like they should do maybe a molding,
which is the same thing they did in the Lizzie Borden trial. Yeah. So the prosecution, right? They've got their story basically pieced together to fit what they want, which is they did it. William and Nellie did it together. They did it for the insurance money. She was going to get $14,000. They say she was going to give William $5,000 of that, and that the two were having an affair. The prosecution calls witnesses to the stand. They call the police who first arrived on the scene, and they call a woman named Kate Packer, who is an acquaintance of Nellie's. I think maybe she lives in the building. And she came to the Pope residence pretty quickly after the incident, like as the police were there.
Okay.
And she testified that Nellie said she was glad Pope was dead.
Yikes.
She also says that, bear with me, I'm not sure if I should earmuff you for this, but I think it's important. It's a pretty messy scene, right? It's pretty bloody.
Okay.
This woman claims that Nellie asked her to pick up Dr. Pope's brains and burn them.
Ew.
And when the woman said no, she then said, all right, Bernice, pick that up and put it in the stove here.
No.
So when she asked Bernice, this woman and another woman jumped and cleaned up.
Bernice, go outside on the swing set. that doesn't exist in the 1890s.
So that's what that woman says, which is, of course, said to portray how cold and calculating
Yeah.
Nellie is. Which, if it's
Ugh.
true, there's no awareness of crime scenes in the same sense that there is today, right? Like,
Sure.
they're not thinking that. It's probably pretty unsettling to see
You think?
your husband's brains on the floor. So maybe she was just maybe she was out of it and in shock and trying to clean up. I don't know. Maybe
Ugh.
she killed him and it just didn't care and was like, let's move on now, guys. I don't know.
But poor Bernice.
The defense says that the prosecution has slandered Nellie and made baseless accusations that are now being just taken as truth by everybody. They say that Dr. Pope was the one who got all of these life insurance policies, not Nellie. And they say he got them from various organizations that he belonged to because then he could borrow money off of them because they were really struggling financially. And the witnesses who came forward about the brain incident, they were overheard by another gentleman telling Nellie, you better give us your furniture when they take you away or else we're going to make things terrible for you. Like, they were heard threatening her, saying that they were going to say things about her if she didn't give them what they wanted.
That's weird.
And the defense says, okay, maybe Nellie did say, I'm glad he's dead, but if your husband had just tried to kill you, would that maybe be an okay thing to say? Like, the defense is trying to say, just for a moment, forget everything you've heard about Nellie Pope.
Right.
And think about maybe she's telling the truth.
Yeah.
And if she truly had been unconscious because her husband had just tried to kill her, wouldn't you be like, I'm glad he's gone? Because it's not like they had a blissful marriage up until that point, and this was the first time he'd tried to be abusive. Defense actually says that Dr. Pope would lock Nellie and Bernice in the room and that he would be in the kitchen preparing food and wouldn't give them any.
What?
And would be stingy with water and things like that. So,
oh my God. Maybe that's why she's sick.
That changes things dramatically, right?
Yeah.
So many people are painting Nellie as the abuser and like the one who's attacking Dr. Pope and putting a strain on his mental health, but maybe he already has that strain on his mental health and he's mistreating them. That's what the defense is trying to set up. Yeah. They also deny the affair. Nellie says she was not having an affair with William. And, I thought about this when I was reading it and the defense brought it up. They said Nellie was sick. She was too sick to be getting into the shenanigans.
Yeah.
They were like, she's ill. This was a woman who's mostly in bed. I don't know what they like in bed resting, to be clear. I don't know what
man and a woman.
Yeah, they did not. They were like, she was not having an affair with this guy. Honestly, she just didn't have the energy. And so this is what the defense is saying, but the prosecution has built this case. William has testified for them. And Nellie is found guilty. Bernice is in the courtroom for a lot of this. And when the sentence comes down, she starts crying and latches onto her mother.
Why? Stop putting Bernice through all of this.
Well, the paper says Bernice obviously was told to do that to invoke sympathy, and she's an actress, just like a lying actress, just like her mother.
8 years old.
I know. Isn't it unbelievable?
I hate people.
They also had interviewed Bernice, and so there were lots of witnesses that came forward saying everybody heard Nellie tell Bernice, now remember what I told you to say, or something along those lines, which they took to mean that Bernice had been coached. And maybe she had.
Sure.
But also, if you're taking they wouldn't allow that today. They wouldn't allow an 8-year-old to go be interrogated by police on her own.
Right.
Like, the mother was probably very worried what they would trick her to say. And I could see it as also an act of protection. Like, be careful what you say because they might take you away. She's taken to prison, and the prison does not like her. She's not a model prisoner. I mean, she's struggling with addiction. We know. She's also, I don't know. I mean, she's sick in some way, but she continues to survive physically. But she gets there and at one point, they had like a they would have church service on Sundays, and at one point she like threw herself off of something and started screaming, I'm innocent, like running around
Oh
during the
boy.
service. So then she was banned from going to service. She also said that the ghost of her dead husband kept haunting her in her
Oh
cell
boy. She's
every night.
cracking.
She was picking fights with a lot of the inmates. I mean, she's very tall, we know, so she's
Yeah.
an intimidating presence. And the prison just wasn't a fan. In January of 1906, the Detroit Free Press reports that Brute Brusseau dies. William dies in jail. And the article says that, it recounts the murder. It says he was hypnotized by Nellie and they committed the murder together and that it was for the life insurance. They give this entire tale.
Mm-hmm.
They also talk about Nellie, and this is how they're talking about her. They're referring to her going into the prison. She, meaning Nellie, was the vilest creature ever received at their institution,
Oh my
but
God.
discipline did much to improve her, and today she is reconciled to her fate, working steadily in the pearl button department.
Ugh.
And that's all it said in the newspapers that I could find.
Wow.
However, in 1917, there's a flurry of activity. So that was 1906.
Mm-hmm.
This is 1917. Nellie Pope is actually granted parole because
Oh.
3 women associated with the Salvation Army, their names were Mrs. Ogg, Clara Dyer, and Margaret Duffy. They fought for her for a long time, trying to get her released on parole because when William died in 1906, he made a deathbed confession that said he acted alone and Nellie had no idea
Wow.
and that he had lied about the whole thing.
William, you're a jerk.
This whole time they have been destroying Nellie, and then nobody reports on it, and they still act like William just did it because he's so in love with Nellie. It's like, really? You think he's been in
No.
prison for a long time at this point? Why? Why would he say that
That's BS.
if it
God.
wasn't true?
I just don't understand why she would be so silent at the podium when she's innocent.
I don't know. Maybe it's because maybe she did tell her story and just nobody published it. I'm telling you, these
Yeah.
articles
They hated her.
immediately destroyed her and just ripped apart her character and said that she was an evil, evil woman. So maybe she did tell her story and the police just disregarded it, said it was a lie, and no reporters picked it up, and that was it.
Mm.
So she is actually granted parole in 1917. Now, some newspapers have a problem with this. They can't believe that this is even happening. They say her daughter wants nothing to do with her. Her daughter doesn't want her to be released, and they can't believe that this is happening. And she gets picked up by these 3 women. So these 3 women have to the Salvation Army has to take control of her because she's on parole. She's just on parole. She's not pardoned.
Right.
And it's said that the prison staff is like, whew, take her. Like, we are so over her because they say she's so difficult. So the Salvation Army gets her a room and they have to get her a job, and they get her a job painting miniatures.
Huh.
And I guess she had to work alone in the prison because she couldn't get along with anybody. And they pick her up in a car. And this is the first time that she's ever been in a car because she went into jail.
Oh, yeah.
Right
Turn of the
before
century.
Yeah, Ford's first test drive in Detroit.
That's so cool.
So she is. One paper reported more favorably about Nellie and said she was just like a child in wonder and awe at being free and being in a car for the first time and seeing how much the city had changed. And she was incredibly grateful to be released and incredibly grateful to the women who had helped get her out.
Yeah.
So she's paroled, but she's still not cleared. So Nellie, that doesn't sit right with Nellie. Nellie wants to be fully pardoned. She wants her record, this removed from her record, because she has claimed her innocence this whole time, all the way through prison. And then William finally backs her up. So she fights for a long time. So in 1928, in November of 1928.
Wow.
Remember, she was released in 1917.
Yeah.
In 1928, she's been trying to get fully pardoned this whole time. They finally grant her a full pardon, remove all of this from her record.
God. Well, now her life's over.
Yeah, the following May, she passes away.
No.
Yeah,
Wait, where's Bernice this whole time?
well, they asked her, "Are you going to reconcile with your daughter?" Because Bernice was adopted. She had her name changed. She was taken in as like a whole new family. And Nellie, and I quote, says, "She is married, happy, and has children of her own. Our lives must stay far apart."
Why?
So I think Nellie understood that she carried such a negative reputation.
Oh. But she was pardoned.
When she was 71 years old. It's so much time. She spent 22 years in prison.
But I bet Bernice knew the truth of what happened.
Bernice did not want, when she was released on parole in 1917, Bernice said she did not think her mother should be released.
Huh.
So Bernice believed her to be guilty.
Well, that's not a good sign.
Yeah. So Nellie Pope
God.
was, said to be an axe murderer and just the vilest creature, quote. And then, and this went, I wish I could show you the articles, right? Like when this all happens, there are articles from all over. They're just destroying her.
Yeah.
And then when she's pardoned, there's like these teeny little paragraphs.
Of course.
Like, whoops, sorry.
Nobody
No,
cares.
she might be innocent. We're going to pardon her. Bye.
Ugh.
So I
That's
don't know.
vile.
What do you think? Do you think she was involved at all?
I think it's a bad sign that Bernice thought she was guilty because Bernice was there.
I don't
But
actually think so because I don't think Bernice saw anything. Bernice said she heard a noise and she ran out of the room. So 8 is still pretty young. And I think if you're adopted, and there were some accounts that said she was young as 5. So she's between 5 and 8. If you get adopted by a family and are told your mother is an axe murderer,
that's just awful.
I think Bernice's first inclination was no. I didn't see anything. I don't know what happened. But so what else you got? Why else do you think she did it?
I mean, I don't think she did it. I don't really know. It's so confusing. If she is ill, how is she gonna, axe someone to death? I'm not sure.
I think for
I don't
sure
know.
William did it.
Yeah.
Like actually did the act. And so then the question becomes, did Nellie know about it?
Right.
And was William's first story true when he said that Dr. Pope was trying to kill Nellie? I don't know.
Wait,
I don't know if
so
I believe
was
that.
there actually a bullet in the wall and
There
stuff?
was. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what I found interesting is they said they didn't believe there was a fight because they didn't see signs of one, and they said that the neighbors didn't hear anything. But I don't know why that matters. There's clearly a bullet in the wall. So even if
Right,
William
that
shot the
would
gun,
happen quickly.
even if William shot the gun to stage it or Dr. Pope shot it to shoot at William, like either way, they're not hearing it. So they're not really helpful in this instance. Like it doesn't matter. There's a bullet in the wall.
Right. So if the neighbors aren't even hearing a bullet being shot, like they're not going to hear anything else. I don't know. I do think the deathbed confession is pretty a telltale of guilt.
And it's possible that there's a scenario that William never told, which was that he loved Nellie that was either reciprocated or not. And he decided to kill Dr. Pope and she knew nothing. Like that's also a possibility. And maybe Dr. Pope was not, maybe Dr. Pope was abusive to Nellie, but wasn't in that moment. And he made up that story to protect her. I mean, and there's also, it's not, there's a lot of gray. Maybe Nellie was abusive. Maybe they were abusive to each other. Maybe they were two people, one struggling with addiction, one struggling with mental illness, who just were not good together. And it was a volatile, toxic relationship.
Ugh.
And William stepped in and thought this was what he needed to do for whatever reason.
That's terrible. Yeah, I feel like when you're at your deathbed, I mean, maybe it was a sign of goodwill, be like, I'm already gonna die. I could just say she's innocent, but the fact that he already turned on her just makes
Yeah,
me think like it's just the truth that's
yeah.
coming out at the very
I
end.
I think that he already had decided. I don't think people realize how. I mean, I don't realize it, but how scary it must be to face the consequences in a way where you could be sentenced to death.
Yeah, I
And your
can't
just
imagine.
self-preservation is
Right.
so alive in you that
Yeah.
he immediately just starts trying to say whatever he thinks that will work. And
Right. I
he's not
mean,
they think he was struggling with addiction as well. They think he had taken drugs. They asked him at one point, like, they thought he was having withdrawals, and then they thought he had actually gotten drugs somehow in prison because he seemed just his
oh,
behavior seemed like he had taken something.
wow.
I don't know. I would love to know what William actually said on this deathbed confession. But
Right.
it's amazing they didn't print that.
It's not sensational. They don't want to. It was too good of a story to have an evil wife. It's so bad. I feel it's just like such a trend though. Like anytime if a woman's not sobbing and emotional,
And then when she
she's like
did
a
cry,
evil
they said it
killer.
was fake.
Right.
I'm like, good Lord. And it was just so clear that they had made up their mind immediately and they were going to do whatever they could to just
Yeah.
make the pieces fit. Uh, I don't know.
Just like another recent case, it's like just try to step back and like piece together the truth. Don't just assume stuff and make up your mind because like you're not going to find true justice that way. Like what's the point of your job?
I wish I knew why William did it. Like I wish I knew if they were having an affair or if
Right.
he was in love with her and, not she, just not misreading their relationship or if
Right. Or maybe
Dr. Pope was
Pope
terrible.
was
I don't
being
know.
abusive and William's like, I've had enough of you being mean to this woman.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, it is. Neither one of them were. It's really sad. Neither one of them were, knocking it out of the park. They were not doing well, or any
Mm-mm.
three of them. All three needed help.
Yeah, seriously.
But when I started this case, I thought, oh, well, this is so, this is a tale as old as time. Like I said in the beginning, right? N- Two lovers killing for
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
insurance, and that's all it is. But that because it wasn't really clear that this all happened at the
Right.
end. It's not like
Right.
the front of the story. The stories all lead with how terrible Nellie is, and then at the end they're like, and she was pardoned off a deathbed confession. It's like one sentence. I'm like, what?
Right.
What do you mean
Yeah,
she was
like
pardoned? Oh my
that's a
god!
very bloated sentence that needs like way more than just
Can
that
we
line.
unpack that a little bit? Because you just
Yeah.
ripped this woman apart, and like I said, it's possible that she was not a nice woman and was also
Right.
innocent, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because you're innocent doesn't mean you're a kind human being. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, nobody knows. But, well, people know that
Ugh.
are gone. But yeah, her poor
Wow.
daughter.
I
And I
know.
think
That's rough.
I think that's a real act of compassion on Nellie's part, whether she's,
Yeah.
what kind of person she is, to stay away from her daughter. I think that's really respectful. And she knew that
Mm,
it would ruin her daughter's life. And even though she probably wanted to
it's
see her
really
daughter.
sad.
Yeah. So that's the case of Nellie Pope, who is, if you search axe murderer, that's what will come back. And yeah, she was pardoned and she lived, she didn't have any problems at the Salvation Army, also,
Yeah.
right? We hear all about the
Right.
problems she
That's a
had
good
in
point.
prison. Like there were no more ghosts and fights. These women from the Salvation Army really believed in her innocence, which is so amazing to me because sometimes that doesn't go well for women. Remember Louise
Yeah.
Pete? She had a woman championing for her, and that went
Mm-hmm.
south real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they were championing for her, and they got her out. So that's the story of the popes.
Oh, that's rough.
Do you have any last words for us?
I sure do. One of the worst things about humans is our capacity for lying. Like
Yeah.
you look across the spectrum of all animals and like they don't they don't lie. Our ability to lie, it creates so many problems. It's like kind of the root of a lot of evil. So, and like this case, we don't really know the truth because we can lie so easily.
Yeah, I know. I really wish I knew exactly what happened that day. And there are levels to this lying, right? It's one thing to lie about what happened to try to save yourself. It's like say it was self-defense, but then it's just a
Mhm.
whole nother level to within 2 days be like, actually, Nellie did it. I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Just throwing this person under the bus if, in fact, that's not the truth.
Under the horse.
Yeah, under the carriage. Right under those wheels.
That's
Yeah.
gonna snap. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com.
Who can listen today? Alana, who's your list?
Dentists, neighbors, I guess nurses, as a
You're
cautionary
naming
tale.
all of the bad.
I know, but maybe they can learn something from this. Marriage counselors could maybe give some insights here. And let's see, Henry Ford.
I don't know how he's going to listen.
I mean, you never know.
All right.
He could be a ghost in an old car with a radio.
Lots of ghosts in the story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, please rate, review, like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we will be back next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.